do there, bud?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of the United
Of the
States of
United
America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Under God.
indivisible, with
Visible,
liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you, Fillmore.
You got it, kid.
Is there anyone, citizens' comments? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to say something? Danielle or Stacy, I don't know.
I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Second time, third time, there being none, public information session, this portion of the meeting is now closed. So we're looking for a motion to discuss and take action to approve a resolution to approve a special appropriation of 1.3 million to the purchase of the Jansen property as follows. I'd like to have a motion in a second so we can discuss this and then we can read it in its entirety.
So moved.
Motion made by Katie. I have a second.
second,
Thanks, Justin. Second. All right. So whereas on September 21st, 2021, the Board of Selectmen approved the purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of the town of parcel known as the Jansen property located on Mungertown Road in the town and authorized the first selectman to sign the agreement. The agreement provides that the town may purchase the Jansen property for 1.3 million. Whereas the Board of Selectmen and Board of Education anticipate locating the Jeffrey School on the Jansen property if an appropriation and bonding resolution is approved by voters at the town referendum. Therefore, be resolved that the Board of Finance hereby approves a special appropriation of 1.3 million for the purchase of the Jansen property. Be it further resolved that the special appropriation is subject to approval at a special town meeting to be held on Monday, December 20, 2021. So there was a motion, a second is open for discussion. Discussion, please. You raise your hands or say hi. I can't.
Hello?
Fillmore, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And I won't waste a lot of your time. First of all, I would like to say that any comments I make are not intended to say that I'm against the school project. I fully intend to bring a valid, or to approve bringing a valid school project ahead to the voters of the town of Madison. So that's not what I'm saying. But I do have a couple of objections. I think I've mentioned them before, but I'll just give a quick recap. Number one, I think it's a little bit opaque to not have that 1.3 million rolled into the overall project cost that's out on the headlines. I fully understand the how Walmart does the Black Friday sales where it's $9.99 instead of $11 or whatever, and we all fall for that. But the headlines in one of the papers just recently spoke about a $89 million project, which sounds better than 90 something. So I won't belabor that. You've heard my comments on that in the past. Secondly, I think that there's been some discussion about, well, we have a very large fund balance that we could be using. And yes, it is very large, but there are a lot of other things we could be using this for. If it's burning a hole in our pocket, we could, among other things, we could stick another 1.3 million into one of the pension funds where it would be earning 6.5% instead of 0.5% or whatever we're getting now on the stiff funds, or even the 2% that we would save in a bonding cost. And as a side note to that, reducing the bonding by $1 million is not even going to move the needle in terms of the annual payments that the taxpayers of Madison are going to see. Secondly, I think that another place we could put it is in the debt service reserve. If we have extra money in the fund balance, that would allow Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance to make the tax impact a lot easier on the taxpayers at the peak of the bonds payments, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, when these bond repayments hit their peak. I think there are other capital projects that we could use. We as I glance at the CIP, now I'm not on that committee. John, thank you for sparing me that agony at our last meeting. But it looks like we've got millions of dollars worth of potential capital needs that would be better served being able to allocate some money from the fund balance. As I said, if it's burning a hole in our pocket, one of them, I remember, was it last week? I don't want to mention names, but the citizen, I think it was at the library opening. There was a big social gathering, and one of the citizens inquired about why his road wasn't being paved, and the answer was that was given back to him is, well, the road fund doesn't have any money in it. Oh, geez, $1.3 million could be added to the road reserve, among many other reserves that we have. And I'm not mentioning any names on this. Finally, along this vein, we are. It's not like we're going to go. I don't think, Stacy, you can please correct me because things have changed maybe in this light interest rate environment, but we're probably not going to go out and float all these bonds, a month after the vote. We typically would either issue bond anticipation notes, bands at a low interest rate, and then when it's all said and done, we know exactly how much money we need. That's when we go out and issue the bonds. Well, that means that there's plenty of time in the future to say, well, we still have this great big fund balance that we can use. So instead of, and we spent all the money, the total cost is X. Instead of having to bond for X, we can shave that off a little. We can shave that $3 or $4 million off. And we can make that decision at a later time when we have a better understanding of what all these other capital needs are. So, Mr. Chairman, those are my comments and my thoughts on this. So that obviously I'm not in favor of pulling $1.3 million out of the fund balance right now for this particular project.
Thank you, Fillmore, for your input, your discussion, your points. Anybody else would like to? Any other discussion? Justin?
John,
I see. Yep.
Actually, I have one specific question, maybe for Peggy, but or whoever's leading the negotiations. And I apologize, but I can't help myself being a real estate person. But I remember at the Jansen presentation, it kind of showed a lot line, like the rear property line as you're looking towards the back of Han High School, Peggy. So my question is, there's a lot of wetlands back there. Do we know the property that we're purchasing on Mungertown, does that stack up entirely to the property that we own at Daniel Hand, or is there like a piece of property in between that is not part of it? But
Peggy, you.
My understanding is it completely abuts to our property, but I wouldn't want to, I mean, that's something the school has been dealing with directly in terms of the, property, the design. So, but that's my understanding. Katie, you might be able to talk better to that.
Yeah, Justin, it does. There are wetlands in the property that we are purchasing, but it will not include the area where the school or leaching fields or any of that are going to be built. It's additional that will
right.
include it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think the outline he showed us was probably meant to be, this is where the school's going to be. But I just wanted to make sure that we actually owned all the way back to hand, because there was talk of possible walkways, and you'd hate to find out, oh, we don't own.
Yeah, and I just want to address that because it did come up last time, the walkways. That is not necessary to have the school there. It's a nice to have at some point if the district chooses to do that, to bridge between the middle school, the high school, and the elementary school, but it certainly is not a necessity in this project.
No, my only point, which I should have just stated up front, is just that we in fact do own all the way to hand so that we can do what we want and we don't have to go back and buy more land. But okay, I just want to make sure because I remember seeing that outline in my head but not all the way back. But yeah, I listened to the Board of Selectmen meeting after the fact. I mean, there was arguments all over both sides of bonding versus not bonding. And to be honest, I can't get too worked up either way. I think there's good arguments for both. In fact, I joke the best advice or the best argument I heard was Al's grandmother about not using debt. But other than that, the other arguments were kind of, not quite as profound. But I guess to me, so I'm not really hung up on how it's funded. I do believe, we do want to make sure it's transparent, that everyone does understand, because I feel like we're all kind of in the know, but even though it was said that it was months ago, I'm not even sure when I realized that the Jansen property was being seriously considered. And there was so much talk about the school plan and a lot of public outreach, going back pre-COVID, and now like kind of in COVID, we're changing it quite substantially by now moving to the other, Mungertown property. So I just hope and want to make sure that the town does fully realize everything that's involved in the project, however it's funded. And to me, there's actually much bigger things that I'm concerned about, not with the school project but just our bonding in general. And with the academy coming up, one thing I have to share that's not part of this discussion, but I think it's all related throughout, because obviously academy is also going to be on the same referendum and is also going to be bonded. But the fact that unless I missed it, I've never heard any public discussion as it relates to academy that with regard to the senior center building, and I brought this up before, it's up to the townspeople to decide if they want or need a community center. But I have to admit, it just seems to me that the fact that it's not even being considered, that if we're having a new community center, which will be quite large by any standard, that we're not also possibly looking at the senior center building as maybe something that could go for some alternative use, meaning the senior center, like Guilford, it could become a community center for the entire community. So whether or not we need a new community center is up to the voters, but it does feel a little concerning to me that we could end up with a community center and potentially another community center existing, less than 100 yards from each other. So that to me is kind of more weighing on my mind in terms of something that we should be thinking about as we go through all these projects looking forward. That's all my comments, John.
Thank you, Justin. Anybody else like to comment? Any other comments? I'm sorry.
Can we, not a comment, John, but no one else raising their hand. Peggy, can we just get a status? Because you also mentioned at the board selecting meeting how the sale of Island Avenue kind of fits into this puzzle. But is there anything you can tell us as to the status or where that stands and when that'll be signed?
Peg?
I'll be updating the board tomorrow in executive session on the sale, purchase and sale agreement. We're in the middle of negotiating that. And so there'll be an update for them in executive session. Obviously, there are just some, terms that are sensitive that we're in the middle of negotiating. My hope is to have the board vote on a final agreed upon purchase and sale agreement on December 20th. On December 20th. So that's when the board would vote on a final purchase and sale. That's what I'm targeting. So that we kind of meet all our timelines in order to the board to vote to put it on the referendum ballot on January 11th, along when we vote with the Academy project and the school renewal project. So it is 3 very different projects that we keep moving forward. But we are making progress.
Any further discussion? See, now we have a motion on the table that has been seconded. Ask for a vote. All in favor of purchasing the Janison property through the reserve fund of 1.3 million, signify by saying aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Opposed?
Opposed? 5 yeas, 1 nay, no abstentions. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We have citizens' comments. Stace?
John, I would like to, I guess, thank Jean for scheduling this meeting at an early date so we would be through in time to watch the Patriots tonight.
I thought she did it around the hockey schedule. Thank you.
Yeah, be very clear, it's not the Patriots for me. That would be my
Good.
priority.
I
Thank
knew
you.
I liked you, Fillmore.
Jean, I agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see. But definitely the hockey, I would say the hockey schedule.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any citizens' comments?
I don't see anybody raising their hand. If you have a comment, please press the raise hand button.
Once, twice, three.
Nope,
There's
nope.
none. Public information sessions closed. Fillmore.
Sir,
Motion
what's
to
next on your
adjourn.
agenda? Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Second. All in favor?